sparkling heart, emotional well-being, happiness, relationships, and self-respect. When your children don't respect you, do this instead. 6 powerful ways to regain respect. Rebuild family dynamics with dignity and strength. Have you ever sat quietly in your favorite chair, perhaps after a long day or a quiet afternoon, and thought to yourself, when did things change? Maybe your adult children used to call often, ask for your advice, or treat your opinions with care. But now it feels like they speak over you. Maybe they roll their eyes, ignore your input, or brush off your feelings like they're nothing. You're not asking for control. You're just asking for basic respect. And yet, somehow, even that feels like too much to expect lately. If that sounds familiar, please know this: you're not alone. This happens to far more people than we talk about. Many parents, especially after their children have grown, moved out, started families of their own, begin to feel invisible, like their role in the family has quietly shifted from respected elder to background noise. And that change can hurt in ways that are hard to describe. This isn't about demanding obedience or trying to control your kids' lives. It's about rebuilding a foundation where you're heard, valued, and treated with the same dignity you give so freely. Respect should be mutual regardless of age. In this video, we're going to gently walk through 6 powerful things you can do when you feel that respect slipping away. These aren't quick tricks or manipulative tactics. They're rooted in strength, self-worth, and emotional clarity. And they'll help you take back your role, not by forcing it, but by embodying the kind of quiet power that others naturally respond to. Let's begin with something that might surprise you. Start by focusing on how you speak to yourself. Yes, your inner voice matters more than you might think. When your children treat you disrespectfully, it's easy to internalize that treatment. You might catch yourself thinking things like, maybe I'm just old-fashioned, or maybe I don't matter as much anymore. But that kind of self-talk chips away at your sense of value. And over time, your children may start mirroring the way you see yourself. So begin there. Remind yourself daily, out loud if you need to, that your life experience matters, that your wisdom matters, that you have every right to be respected, heard, and considered. Because when you speak with conviction and stand firm in your worth, people notice. You carry yourself differently. You respond differently. And others begin to shift in response to that strength. You see, respect doesn't start with them, it starts with you. Now let's talk about boundaries. Not the kind we draw in anger, but the kind that are born from self-respect. If your children constantly interrupt you, dismiss your concerns, or treat you like you're less than, it's okay, more than okay, to say, I'm not comfortable with that tone, or I'd like to be spoken to with the same respect I give you. You don't have to yell or lecture. You can speak calmly and still be firm. Setting boundaries isn't about creating conflict. It's about creating clarity. People often treat others the way they've been allowed to. And if you've let little things slide for years, it's natural that those little things grew into bigger ones. But it's never too late to reset that dynamic. Even if it feels awkward at first, even if they're surprised or push back a little, stand your ground. You're not being difficult. You're protecting your peace. And while we're on the subject of peace, I want to talk about something that takes true emotional strength. Letting go of trying to be the parent who fixes everything. So many of us fall into the trap of overgiving. We bend over backwards to help our adult kids, to watch the grandkids at a moment's notice, to loan money without hesitation, to drop everything when they need us. And while it's beautiful to love your children deeply, it becomes a problem when they start to take that love for granted. Love should not mean losing yourself. One way to regain respect is to begin honoring your own time and needs again. That might mean saying, I'm not available on Friday, even if you technically are. It might mean not answering the phone at midnight, just because you always have. These small choices send a clear, quiet message. I love you, but I also love myself. And I deserve the same consideration I give. It's not about being selfish. It's about being balanced. You might be surprised how quickly that shift creates space for respect to grow. When your children see that you're not a bottomless resource, they begin to remember that your time, your energy, and your presence are gifts, not guarantees. And here's something else you can do that has a powerful ripple effect. Stop chasing validation. It's tempting, isn't it? To do everything you can to be the good parent, hoping they'll finally notice. To give and give, waiting for them to say thank you or treat you better, or finally recognize your sacrifices. But chasing approval often leads to disappointment. Instead, live your life in a way that fulfills you. Pursue hobbies, friendships, routines, and joy that aren't dependent on your children's attention. That kind of independence not only makes your life richer, it also commands respect without you having to ask for it. Because people admire those who live with quiet confidence. When you stop needing their validation to feel whole, you shift the power in the relationship, not by controlling them, but by being unshakably centered in who you are. And that's where true dignity begins. Now that we've explored some of these first shifts, focusing on your inner voice, setting boundaries, and honoring your own time, we're already beginning to build a new foundation. A foundation where respect doesn't have to be demanded, because it flows naturally from a place of inner strength. Let's keep building from here. We've started laying the foundation for something powerful, something that doesn't just repair broken family dynamics, but rebuilds them on stronger, more respectful terms. Because the truth is, when you shift how you carry yourself, how you speak to yourself, and how you protect your peace, the people around you begin to shift too. But the journey doesn't end there. There are still deeper steps you can take, ones that strengthen not just how others treat you, but how you treat yourself when they don't. Let's talk about one that often gets overlooked. Stop arguing to be right and start speaking to be heard. When we feel disrespected by our children, especially adult children, it's natural to want to defend ourselves. You might find yourself saying, "After everything I've done for you," or "You never used to talk to me like this." And while those words might be true, they often land in a way that pushes people away rather than pulling them closer. So instead of trying to win the argument, focus on something far more powerful, communicating how you feel with clarity, calm, and strength. For example, rather than saying, "You're so rude to me," you might say, "When I'm spoken to that way, I feel hurt and dismissed." That small shift in language moves the conversation from blame to understanding. You're not attacking. They don't need to get defensive. You're sharing calmly and honestly how their actions affect you. And you know what? People are far more likely to listen when they don't feel like they're being scolded. You've already raised them. Now you're relating to them adult to adult, and that's a powerful place to speak from. Let's stay with that thought for a moment. Relating to your adult children as equals. That can feel tricky, right? After all, you're the parent. You'll always be the parent. But once your kids are grown, the healthiest relationships tend to evolve into mutual adult respect. That doesn't mean you erase the past or forget the years of raising them. It simply means you allow the relationship to shift into a new phase, one where both sides are human, imperfect, and still learning. When your adult children feel like you trust them to live their lives, even when you disagree with their choices, it opens the door for more respect to flow back toward you. It may seem backwards, but giving a little space often brings people closer. Because no one likes feeling judged or controlled. But everyone, regardless of age, appreciates being seen as capable. That doesn't mean you can't have boundaries. It just means your words and actions say, "I see you as your own person, and I hope you'll do the same for me." That's a deeply respectful place to live from. And while we're talking about seeing others clearly, let's turn the lens inward again for a moment. Are you carrying old resentment? Be honest. It's okay if you are. If your children have hurt you, spoken to you harshly, or failed to show up for you when you needed them most, it makes sense that some of that pain might still be sitting in your heart. But here's something important. Carrying unspoken resentment often does more damage to you than it does to them. It weighs you down. It leaks into your tone, your facial expressions, your energy. Even if you don't say a word, your children can feel it. And that creates a wall between you, one that makes mutual respect harder to reach. Now, this isn't about pretending the past didn't happen. It's about choosing to process it so it doesn't keep poisoning the present. Maybe that means writing a letter you never send. Maybe it means seeing a counselor, or confiding in a trusted friend, or just allowing yourself to cry. Whatever it takes, give yourself permission to let some of that go. Forgiveness doesn't mean they were right. It means you're no longer letting what they did take power over your peace. And that brings us to a beautiful turning point, modeling the kind of respect you want to receive. This is subtle but strong. When you consistently speak with kindness, listen without interrupting, and treat your children with the same dignity you're asking for, you teach by example. Even if they don't mirror it back right away, it sinks in. I remember one woman, Margaret, who came to a family support group I visited. She said her adult son had been cold, dismissive, and barely spoke to her except when he needed something. For years, she responded with silence, or sharpness, or withdrawal. and it only made things worse. But one day, she decided to change the energy. Not for him, for herself. She started greeting him warmly, offering kind words, and showing him the kind of grace she wanted to receive. At first, nothing changed, but over time he softened. One day, he stayed longer after dropping off the kids. The next time, he helped her with a heavy bag. Slowly, their bond began to rebuild, not because she forced it, but because she modeled it. Respect is contagious, and it often starts with us. Let's keep leaning into that power, into that self-awareness, and into the calm confidence that you have every right to set the tone in your own life. Because reclaiming respect doesn't require a shouting match or a guilt trip. It doesn't require you to beg or blame or shrink to keep the peace. It asks only that you stand in your truth, with dignity, kindness, and strength. And that strength, it lives in you already. At this point, you've already begun to shift how you see yourself and how you relate to your children, setting boundaries with grace, letting go of the need to be right, and focusing on your inner peace over outside approval. These are not small changes. They are deeply powerful because they reshape the foundation of your relationship, not just with your family, but with yourself. But there's one more piece to this puzzle that ties it all together. One more approach that often gets forgotten but can completely transform how you're seen, heard, and valued. Live your own life fully, with joy and purpose, whether or not your children are watching. I know that might sound simple on the surface, but think about it. How much of your identity has been tied to being a parent? For decades, you were the caregiver, the problem solver, the one holding everything together. And now, if your children have grown distant or speak to you with less kindness than you deserve, it's easy to feel like your purpose has faded too. But that's just one chapter of your life. It's not the whole story. When you wake up and decide to live this stage of your life with energy, curiosity, and meaning, when you do things simply because they make you feel alive, you reclaim something no one else can give you, your joy. And the surprising thing, when your children see you living fully, learning something new, meeting up with friends, exploring your own interests, they start to view you differently. You're no longer just mom or dad waiting by the phone. You're a whole person. And that creates respect. Not because you asked for it, but because you showed them what it looks like to thrive. I've seen it happen countless times. A father in his 70s takes up watercolor painting and begins attending weekly classes, something he always wanted to try. A mother finally joins that book club she used to be too busy for. Another takes a short trip, signs up for an online course, or volunteers at the local community center. These aren't acts of defiance. They're acts of renewal. And they send a subtle, powerful message. My life has value, whether you validate it or not. That kind of energy shifts everything. It draws people in. It inspires admiration. And yes, it can even invite your children to re-engage with you, not because they feel obligated, but because they want to be part of that energy again. You don't have to wait for someone else to give you permission to be joyful. That permission is already yours. Now, before we close, let's gently reflect on what we've uncovered together. Regaining respect from your children doesn't mean demanding it with anger or retreating in silence. It means stepping fully into your worth, speaking with calm strength, setting clear boundaries, letting go of resentment that weighs you down, modeling the kindness and dignity you want reflected back at you, and most of all, reclaiming your own life as a source of joy and purpose. And let me say this clearly, you deserve to be treated with respect, not just because of what you've done for your family, but because of who you are. Even if your children don't always see it. Even if the relationship feels strained right now. Even if you've made mistakes along the way. Because every parent has. There is still time to rewrite the story. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to look the way it used to. But it can be healthy, honest, and healing. And that begins with you making the first move, not out of desperation, but out of self-love. You are worthy of love and kindness at every stage of life. That truth doesn't change just because your role in the family has shifted. If anything, your wisdom, your calm, and your example are needed now more than ever. And if no one has told you this lately, let me be the one to say it. You matter. You've done more than most people will ever know. And you deserve peace, dignity, and joy in this next chapter of life. If any part of this message touched your heart today, I encourage you to take a moment and share your experience in the comments. Has something like this happened in your family? Have you found a way to heal that divide? Or are you just beginning to take that first brave step toward change? Your voice matters, and your story could help someone else feel less alone. And if you found this video helpful, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. We create these messages because too many people, especially those over 60, feel unseen and unheard. But not here. This is your space, your community, and your reminder that your best years aren't behind you. They're still unfolding. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I hope you leave this video feeling a little taller, a little more grounded, and a whole lot more empowered. Here's to you, living with strength, walking with dignity, and knowing that respect begins within. Always.